Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of Brownsville Matters. Today we have Liz, local realtor of many years, going to teach us all about the real estate market and what we can look forward to in the next few years. Welcome.
Well,
thank you for coming.
And thank you for having me.
Well, we need to talk about this because this is on everybody's minds as to what is happening in the real estate market. I guess the first question I need to ask you is what's going to happen, or what do most people think will happen with interest rates in the next year or two? Because a lot of people are sitting back saying, well, I'm not going to buy until these interest rates come down.
In part, that is true. However, the people need to move, people need to relocate, people need to sell for other reasons, and sometimes the interest rate pales in comparison to the actual needs of the family. So I think it's really important that we keep in mind that life goes on, and irrespective of the interest rate, people need to continue with their lives. They need to get a house, they need to sell, and so forth. So I think that that's really important. I think it's on an individual basis.
Sure.
Yeah, the market right now, even though we see it kind of slowing down because of the interest rates, but that I don't feel that it's happening here right now. It's not as crazy it was in 2020 and 2021, where it was a madhouse. It was like a fire sale. But we've seen it slow down a little bit, but people are still buying. I mean, there may not be 10 offers on a property, but we'll still have, I just finished putting one and I had four offers. And so people are still qualified. So I think
Did we have the situation here that they had in, let's say, Austin and California and other places where people were, putting their house up for sale, and they'd have 20 people
yes, absolutely,
outbidding each other?
Absolutely. It was absolutely crazy. They even put a timeline when we put up the listing. We'll say, bring in your offer by Friday, because Friday is the deadline.
Wow.
And so there were so many, and then you have all of these offers, and of course the seller has to make that. One of the things that became a little bit more common these days is that people are starting to write letters, because they knew they had to compete against maybe 10 other offers. So they'd write a letter and they tell you what is the reason why I'm moving here. A lot of them were very emotional. So that would really pull on the heartstrings of the seller, and because of course all of them were, in most cases, were true. And so you'd get all of these, and then you'd read the letters that people would actually write, and then you wouldn't give it to the highest one. In all the instances that I was able to oversee, I saw that the seller had that human factor still in there. Yes, the money's good, but a lot of the times, if they had to make a decision, the human factor always overpowered the money factor. And that's good to know here in South Texas, that there's still good people with good hearts that look at the letters and realize that this is a reason why they need to purchase this property.
Well, what kind of letters? Was this sort of thing like, my family will uniquely enjoy this property?
Well, many times, in some cases, they've lost a son or a daughter that wanted to be by the ocean.
Oh.
So that was interesting. That was really heartfelt. In other cases, we feel that there maybe have a divorce had happened, and the kids want to be by the dad or by the mom, and so then they write this letter and they talk about the different schools and things that are going to be needed for this child. So you look at all of that, and you look at the money factor, and then you look at this family really does need it. Or in a case where they're coming from out of state, or they're coming from another part of Brownsville, but they want to be closer to an elderly family member
they're going to take care of.
Absolutely. So those things are still very powerful.
Is that letter worth $10,000? I mean, would they drop the rate, drop the price over the highest bidder by 10, 20,000?
I will say that in one case in particular that I was involved in, absolutely.
And did you have a role in that? Did you say, you should go with this one?
Well, we really can't say that, but we can sit down with the seller and discuss it. And this is what I do. This is what I've been doing. I said, if this was your son, if this was your daughter, what would you do? And that kind of changes the dynamics of things. It really does.
With these bidding wars
Yes.
that people have, were people often quite shocked at how high these bids went?
Absolutely. I mean, people, I don't know if you ever seen that cartoons where you actually see the little cartoon with the little money signs on the eyes. And when I would approach the seller, I mean, I would feel like here comes the magnet of that aura of the money factor. So yeah, a lot of the houses were overpriced, and that's the good and the bad. It's like immediate gratification at that point, but then the taxes are going to be reflective of how much you paid for it,
right.
And then reality has to set in for the buyer and realize that yes, I got it, but guess what, my payments are going to be from here on out, when maybe I could have thought about it a little bit. But when you're in the mad dash and there are 10 people behind you or 5 people,
yeah, it's easy to get in there.
It's easy to throw in the kitchen sink.
It is.
And then later lament in some cases, and some they're going to go for, they're going for gold.
If they, at least many of them who did that back last summer, they got a good interest rate.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So they may have bid high, but they got a good interest rate.
One of the downfalls, I guess I see a different side sometimes of this in terms, again, of going back to the human factor. I saw that a lot of young couples and first home-time buyers were just shut out of the market. And to me, that's very heartfelt.
It is.
Because if that was your daughter trying to get, they're scraping the pennies, finally they got their little pre-qualification letter, and here comes Mr. Zoom from somewhere and just overpowers that one. And then you look at it, and of course these are some of the things that I discuss with them. The seller can do whatever they want, but it's good to see that part, of that. Of course they can't, sometimes it's just the money factor, they've got to pay their loan that they already have, the mortgage that they presently have, and they need money in which to move or relocate somewhere else. Because I think that many times us as real estate agents, brokers, and so forth, I always like to ask the seller, where are you going from here? What's plan B? Not just, okay, I sold the house, that's it. So how can what is the transition? Because selling a house has to do with people's lives. Who are the people in it?
Yeah.
Every house has a story. Where do you fit into this story? How are you going to help this person transition? And unfortunately, a lot of people coming into the industry, and I'm not saying all of them, but many of them have gone into this profession thinking, I'm going to go show a house and I'm going to make money and ride around in a sports car, and that is probably, in all honesty, 1% of what we do. 1% is to show it. And then after that, it's dealing with this. It's like, I always say, it's like having a patient. We got to make sure the blood pressure's good. We got to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And so these are the things. It's a lifelong. You're going to impact somebody's life forever.
I think the public perception of a realtor is that a lot of their job is showing, and the frustration of showing lots and lots of homes without getting a buyer, or having the buyer that was with them while they showed them leave to get a better offer or something like that. There's a lot of TikTok videos and YouTube videos of realtors, all over the U.S. Showcasing their lives as a realtor. And generally, the focus is on the showing and how frustrating it is to take a client around and show them 20 homes and they can't make up their mind.
Well, sometimes we have to tell the client, you're looking for something that doesn't exist in this market. And that's when they have that moment where you have to tell them, this is what we have. We have A, B, and C, and this is what we have. And that's it. If we lived maybe in a big area, Houston, Austin, and all that, maybe you can go on and show and so forth. But I think
So what are they looking for that isn't here, that you've run into?
Well, many times either they want the house with the pool, which they're probably going to get either the pool or the house. They may want some other amenities that perhaps maybe some of the older homes don't have, and then they have to think about that. They're looking. There's this saying that says location, location, location. And I think for a very big part, that is true. Location in accordance to what is required in your life.
Sure.
And what do you want? What do you want to be close to? So that has a lot to do with where they want to be. And of course, the
So
money
what are the hot locations in this region?
Oh, geez.
Lower Valley, what are the hot locations?
I think that a lot of people, after the pandemic, I think people had kind of a change in the way that they perceived living, because a lot of them didn't want to live in the big city anymore. They didn't want to live in the crowd. So basically, they had an attitude adjustment, I would say. And so a lot of them wanted to go out, like to Bayview. They wanted to go live in Los Fresnos. They want a house with a lot of land and things like that. So people, I guess, were so fed up with being cooped up that they felt like, that's it, I'm done. I don't want to live in an apartment complex, or I don't want to live in a duplex. I want to actually have out, and I want to maybe grow a garden and do things like that. So we saw a lot of that. And the good news is that we still have a lot of land in and around Brownsville and the surrounding areas. So we still can get that country feel, but you're really not too far from where we're at. So you see a lot of these other subdivisions out, like coming out into Los Fresnos area, Bayview area, that people, this is what they want.
What is this Madeira about? This is a planned community.
That actually, it's a master plan community. I kind of equate it to what Mr. Hudson did here with the 1,000-acre, like they did Emerald Valley, Emerald Cove. They did Havenwood, and all of those subdivisions here. That's a kind of the same thing where you have maybe a gymnasium, you have maybe an amphitheater, you have everything. So it becomes like an ecosystem within another ecosystem.
Right.
It becomes a community within a community. And so I hear a lot of wonderful things. They have some great people out there that have some really good perspective on what's actually gonna, what do we need? And of course we need more housing, and we need more communities like in the outskirts. You know, before we said Rancho Viejos is so far away, and now it's right here. So now we're all together. The same thing, I eventually foresee that at one point we're all gonna be interconnected, which is
from here to McAllen, it's going to be one big city.
It's just going to be one big city, and these are all they're going to be are just like I say, they're going to be connections into. We're going to be more connected, and that's a really good thing, because I think that for any species to survive, we need to help one another, and we need to be interconnected at some point, at some level.
Well, with this planned community, Madeira, what is the central feature of it? Most of these communities have something, when they plan them, they say, this is going to make this special. Because obviously Rancho Viejo years ago, golf course, and everything was built around orchards and golf course. And that was a great attraction. So what is Madeira doing?
But I think that one of the things that they're doing is they're already planning to have, for example, they're going to be having some water features there.
Okay.
They're going to be having some really nice parks as well. They're going to have the jogging. A lot of the things I think maybe that we have here, like the bike trail, the walking trail, and all of those things I think are really, really important.
So they're just going to build it in.
Yeah, and they're going to have some anchor stores out there as well. I'm sure that there are going to be some of our local stores as well going in there. So with all these things, this takes time to bring in the commercial side of it, but I think they have pretty well everything. The element of surprise will not be there. I think that people already kind of get an idea of who's going to be out there in terms of the commercial side of it.
Is that 1,000 acres out there?
I don't know if it's 1,000 acres, but I think it's pretty close to it. I think it's pretty good size, yes.
Well, that's kind of what they did in the Woodlands, up in north of Houston. They built the plan. One of the things I'd like to ask everybody is, how did you get into this business? What attracted you to real estate?
I think that one of the things that attracted me to real estate, I guess the very rudimentary part of it was that I remember when I was younger and my dad bought a building. He bought a duplex, and it was just a shell. And I'm like, Dad, what did you do? He goes, well, this is going to be for your future. It's going to help you and your sisters and your brother pay for college. I go, Dad, no. He goes, yes. He goes, I'm going to move this duplex. It was out from, I don't know where my dad found it. It didn't have a roof. It was just like gutted. I thought it was been through a fire. And so
truly a shell.
So my dad moved it over to next door to our house, and he said, okay, guys, guess what? we're going to build it ourselves. And I'm like, oh, Lord. And so anyway, so he got all of us involved in actually doing this. We actually did the roof. We had no idea what we were doing, but Dad was always directing us as to what to do. And he was always telling us in the back of our mind, this is going to pay for your college. And so later on, actually, it did. I mean, it put all of us, we're 5 in the family, four sisters and a brother. And that little income that we got from the apartments, for the duplexes, it really helped my parents put all of us enroll with college degrees at this point. But I never forget that. So I kind of got interested in that. I said, so this can give us this kind of money. So back then, you know, you really don't understand things until you actually have to live them. And I think that's when I was a young girl. But fast forward into my life, I was a school teacher for 35 years at the high school. And
at which high school?
At Hannah High School.
At Hannah High School.
I started actually in 1982 at Porter High School. And then I moved over to Hannah High School, and I remained there till my last day when I retired.
And you taught English literature and composition? I taught English literature
and composition. I did a little bit of journalism. I really liked that. Okay. So once I had hit my 20-year mark, I decided, okay, so how long am I going to be here, and am I going to last another 10 years? So I needed to start planning for my retirement. Right. Little did I know that I actually did it for 35 years. But in the interim, when I was on the 20-year mark, I went ahead and I got my real estate license because I knew that was probably a long-term thing for me. And so I went and got my license, and I did both jobs. I taught at the high school full-time, and I did my real estate also. And so I worked weekends and nights and holidays and anytime I could get my little business up. And at first I was solo, you know, and I think that looking back, I have to give credit to my brother because he was the one who told me, I'll lend you the money for you can start your business, but I want you to read this book. It's called Martha Turner Properties. And it's a lady who's now probably the premier broker in Houston, Texas. And she just had a wonderful story to tell. And I gravitated around her story. And so then my brother, he said, okay, he gave me a quiz on the book, and so I actually passed it. And he said, "Okay, Liz, here's a blank check. You can go ahead and use it for you can start your business."
What a good guy!
Yeah, but of course, and I told him I'll pay him. I figured to myself when I saw the amount that I had to write the check, I said, "This is going to take me a long time to pay back." But lo and behold, I was thinking back that who was my very first client, and I did get a call from a Catholic diocese, and I said, "It's the good Lord calling me."
It's divine intervention.
Yeah, divine intervention. And I did sell a nice sized piece of property at the very first, and so I would venture to say that was my first client, and from then on out, you know, it's been a wonderful journey, and I continue to do real estate. I've got my son involved as well because I'd like for him to become, you know, and we have to pass the torch as teachers and as business professionals. I think that, you know, we have to understand that we need to pass it. Part of being an educator is to pass our legacy on and educate them so that they can continue what we started. I think that's very important because we can't hold on to it forever.
How did your background as a teacher of English inform your work as a realtor?
Excuse me?
How did your background as a teacher of English help you as a realtor?
Well, absolutely. I do a lot of writing. I do the writings, and I think that has helped me. Also communicating with students in the high school level. I mean, the general population isn't too far from the classroom kids, you know? We get all kinds. So I think that, you know, having patience and grace, and really educating the buyer, because a lot of times the buyers need to get educated as to what's the process, how do we do this, because what you see on television or the Hollywood glitz and glamour is maybe 1% of what we actually have to do. And like anything, the more informed you are about what you're doing and what you can give to your buyers, the more tools they have to make the right decision at the time that they're getting ready to sign on the dotted line.
What are some of the things that the average person does not know about real estate, about purchasing, that sometimes inhibits their ability to do it?
I think that one of the things that's most important is the financial aspect, about knowing what the process is to get qualified, what are some of the things that you need to get qualified, and all the different kinds of programs there are for people that, for example, maybe they need a down payment assistance program, or maybe they don't need it, but they maybe need another kind, maybe a conventional loan, or maybe they need an FHA loan, a first home time buyer. There's a lot of things out there that the general buyer doesn't know, and so once we help them through the process, the first thing they need to do first and foremost, before we get in the car and start showing and taking that little nice drive they show on TV, is that we need to get them together, if they're not already, to help them to try to get qualified so that we can find out, to hone in on that target that we're looking at.
Sure.
And so we're just going to show them those houses that fall within their budget, because that's reality. These
Sure.
are the houses that you can afford right now. Maybe later on, let's start with a starter home, and then later on we'll move to the next level and the next level, because chances are people in general move 5 to 7 times in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So we need to find out where they're at in their lives. And I think the most important thing is to find out, sit down and have a conversation with the buyer. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about what are your needs. What is it that you want? And I think once we reach out and find out their heart and what they really want, then we're better able to service them. A lot of times the misconception, they're just out to the commission. Trust me, many times we've given the commission to somebody so that they could get their house.
So do people tell you the truth?
I think generally speaking, yes, they do, because we're basically at that point. I think that most people are honest people. They do tell us what is going on because they have to tell us. We're going to find out anyway when we get the information on their financials. When they tell us they're either getting a divorce or, there's been a tragedy or something. So we need to find out in order to better help them.
But I'm sure there's some of this, I've got $15,000 to put down that they think they have. And then they find out that Uncle Johnny is not good for that $15,000.
Well, there's a lot of parameters within the lending, the way I call it, the lending globe, that they can't just have, they can't bring in their money in a suitcase. It's not happening, okay? They need to have that money seasoned. That money has to come from somewhere, and so we can't do any of that. I'd be somewhere else if I'd be collecting stuff like that.
Well, if I'm right now, I come to you and I say, what I'd really like is to have 10 acres in the country. And I say, I've got $200,000 to buy 10 acres in the country. Not a house, just the acreage. Is that enough?
What I usually ask you is for proof of funds, so that I know that you actually have them. And a lot of people, I don't need to. We do, because we're going to work together. And I think one of the things that's really important is I tell you, we're going to work as a team, which we are. And I think that I know that you want 10 acres. You want just the 10 acres. So I have to ask you, what do you plan to do with that? Are you going to farm on it? Are you eventually going to put a ranch house? Is it just going to be, I'm going to put a horse and stable out there? The reason that I have to ask you these questions, because if you plan to put a house there, how far is the utilities?
Right.
You're going to have to put a septic tank if there's nothing there for your that. And is there light around here? How much is it going to cost you to bring the electricity to where you're at? Unless you want to be Florence Nightingale and have a lantern.
Can be all solar.
Okay, so these are some of the questions, and what is your long term in that?
Okay.
You know,
I don't want to build anything on it. I just want to have goats.
You want to have goats?
Yes. So I just need the 10 acres. So and it'll be agricultural land because I'll be raising goats. Okay. So just roughly, can you get me 10 acres for $200,000?
I probably can, but it's going to depend on where you want it.
Of course.
Are you going to be in the Bayview area? Are you going to be more in the Arroyo? Or do you want to be by the water? Do you want to have some kind of water? As you're going to having animals there, so you're going to have to feed the animals. So
I want it to be on the Resaca.
On the Resaca, that would be lovely because you can always pump out the water from the Resaca to do what you need to do on your property.
Animals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Resaca property generally is about $50,000 an acre on a Resaca or more. Depends on where the Resaca is, of course.
It's hard for me it always depends on where it is, how it's located.
Yeah.
So these are the things, and also many times in some of the areas, in some of the areas, you own actually toward the middle of the Resaca, not just right here on the.
I do. So I live on a Resaca now. I own to the middle.
Yeah, you own to the middle of it. So in some cases they don't, but you always have to check when you get a survey. That's probably one of the first things. If the previous owners had a survey, you definitely want to take a look at it, and if not, you're going to get one done hopefully before you sign on the dotted line, so that you can actually see what exactly it is that you're purchasing.
That's why in my neighborhood, when from time to time people will come from outside, they'll come to put a canoe in there or whatever, and we tell them it's private, and because it's private land, as opposed to a true river where they would be able to pass with because it's public at that point.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
What area of Brownsville, if I had a house to sell and I gave it to you this morning, what area of Brownsville could you almost certainly sell that house by this afternoon?
I would say what's going to dictate there is the price tag we're going to put on it.
Of course.
That would be it. That would be it, because everything sells. Whether you're here, whether you're on the north side, east, west, and south, I do believe there is a buyer for every house, and like everything, price is going to dictate how long it sits on the market or how long it's going to go.
So the location isn't as important as price?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think we have a good mix of people in that, in looking at the whole spectrum of housing. I think I have a buyer for $100,000. I have a buyer for $200,000, $300,000, and I have fewer, of course, in the $700,000 range.
Do we have many cases now of corporate buying of homes? Like they complain in a lot of cities that about 30-40% of the homes are being bought by corporations, and then it freezes out the young buyer, the family, and then it makes it where those people who would want to buy now just can rent, and so they can't build up equity in anything.
In my case, I have not seen that.
Not seen it?
I have not seen that. No, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a bad thing in general because, like you said, it creates corporate ownership of neighborhoods, and it's a whole different dynamic, and it freezes out people who would like to buy something and have equity and see their net worth appreciate.
Absolutely.
So I know they're talking in Congress about trying to figure a way to limit that or stop it in some way. I don't know how you do it exactly.
And I think that what also you could probably be relating to is a lot of foreign countries, a lot of foreign actors are coming in and buying a lot of our farmland.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our farmland and a lot of the properties, land, it doesn't have to be farmland, that are near the strategic areas for our sensitive government properties as well. So that's also something that I've heard that is in the making of having so many people come in and purchase things like that, of that nature. And as again, where are they buying this? To me, the farmland is like gold.
And water rights.
And the water
rights to go with it.
Yeah. So these are some of the issues that I know that are going to come to the forefront in our market, probably sooner than later. They're already here. We've just become aware of them.
Yes. Something else that surprised me recently is I was looking at Airbnb listings, and I was surprised how many there were here in Brownsville.
It is it's an explosion. And I think that a lot of people are getting into the Airbnb, and a lot of people, maybe they don't want to stay in a hotel, but they'd rather do the Airbnb. And I think it's going to shut out the hotels. They're going to put them out of business because every night, probably 9 out of 10 people that I hear is Airbnb instead of going into a hotel. So I think that the floor dynamics of that may be shifting as well.
I have used them before, but I don't like having to have a 3-day minimum or 3-night minimum. I mean, obviously, if you're going someplace for a while, but a lot of my hotel nights are 1 night. And so the Airbnb is not really an option, but it's a wonderful, I think it's a pretty good business opportunity for a lot of people.
I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of people. I think it's as good for the ownership, as good as the people being able to use the facilities and so forth. And I think this is kind of the creative way, whoever invented the Airbnb or whoever thought about it, I think that that's just a wonderful way around having to, pay the exorbitant amount of some of these hotels. And you can actually feel like, well, I'm at home or I'm in somebody's house, or I know, and I think that that's a really inviting, that's the human factor again, back to getting the housing and people,
Sure. So Liz, you grew up here, right?
Yes, I did. I grew up in Brownsville. Yes, I did.
So what's the greatest shock to you? What has happened in this community since you were a little girl that is the biggest surprise?
Well, I just think the biggest surprise is just the way the city has grown. It's just like there were some streets here that even I didn't know that the street existed. I think just the expansion in the amount of time that we've expanded so much. Because I remember when I was little, I used to go to McAllen. I used to think, oh my God, McAllen has all these great things, and Brownsville, we're so behind, And now it's just in a matter of certain years, I've seen just the expansion just of the housing market. It's just phenomenal seeing the housing market. The commerce, I think we're still a little bit lagging behind, but in terms of the housing market and how many people are actually living in Brownsville, Texas, to me is like amazing. The traffic, all of that, we never had that. I wasn't here for the horse and buggy, but believe it or not, but definitely the traffic just tells you the amount of people that are out there. And if you actually get on a plane and you look down into Brownsville, it is massive. It is really growing, and you see the port, and you see SpaceX, and you see, all of these things that it just makes this place just like very exciting, very alive. The downtown, actually, we're waking up.
Yes.
To me, it was a sleepy giant, and I think the giant has now awakened.
Okay, Gabriel, take that cut and send it to Chamber of Commerce right there. They can make an ad with that, right? Liz, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I'd like to be back with maybe a little entourage.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
Thanks for watching this BSPA video. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you like what you see. And if you really like what you see, go ahead and go to our website, brosoperformingarts.org, and smash the donate button. And then we'll really like you too.